he desired and wanted this training project with Italian Gemmological Institute. And you know that now Italian Exhibition Group is also a cultural hub, and Gem Talk is cultural. Therefore, we have two important subjects today. One is about Akoya pearls. And for this Gem Talk, I want also to thank the Japan Pearl Export Association and JETRO, the Japan External Trade Organization, who help us in the organization of these Gem Talks. We have the honor of having with us the Ambassador Umberto Vattani, okay, pardon. The President of the Italy-Japan Foundation, also the General Consul of Japan, Kobayashi Tojaki, and the Commissioner General of Italy from Export to 2025, Mario Andrea Vattani, to whom I give the floor for a brief greetings.
Hello, thank you very much, and thank you very much for mentioning my father, who is Umberto Vattani. In fact, I can start by saying that I'm very sorry that my father couldn't. I'm on behalf of my father, who is currently the president of the Italy-Japan Foundation. I'm sorry to say he's not here, but he would have loved to be here. But I am also somehow involved in the Italy-Japan Foundation. And what I will say, just a few words, because I'm also very curious, just as all of you are, to hear about pearls. And before we had a lunch with Mr. Akamatsu and also Mrs. Ijichi. I was very happy to meet them. And I asked some questions to Professor Akamatsu, and he refused to answer because he said, I will tell you when the time comes. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that. Now, just quickly, I wanted to say how happy I am to be able to address you with just a few words. Vicenza Oro is a very important, it's needless to say this, but it's one of the occasions that Italy has to show its creativity, its quality, its genius. And so diplomats as myself are always very happy to have an opportunity to be somehow related to Vicenza Oro. So I'm thankful to Mr. Carniello for having me here. As you can see, I'm wearing, well, you can't see it very well, but it's a beautiful cameo with the symbol of Osaka Expo, which was given to me yesterday by Mr. Alfonso Vitiello. Why am I saying this? Because Mr. Alfonso Vitiello is an example, being the descendant of the family Delia, who was present in Nagasaki and Kobe at the end of the 19th century, at a time when Japan was going through a civil war, and funnily enough, at the same time as many nations had to leave or make choices about where they were going to stand and who they were going to stand with, Italian merchants of pearls and corals, such as the family of Mr. Alfonso Vitiello, were able to trade with both. And this is something that I think is a real example of the way that Italy engaged with Japan since the beginning, always at a peer-to-peer level, at a time when Japan was also having some difficulties with difficult treaties and the unjust treaties with nations such as Britain or France and so on. Italy was able to engage with Japan on a peer-to-peer basis. And this is something that inspires us. And it will also inspire participation by Italy in the Expo of Osaka 2025. So this will be the third time that Japan hosts an Expo. We all remember the fantastic visionary Osaka 70. Well, we remember it in the sense I was quite young at the time, but we remember the pictures and what that Expo meant at that time. We remember Osaka Aichi the Expo of Aichi in 2005, where Italy had the most visited pavilion after the Japanese pavilion. And now we will have Osaka 2025. And why am I saying this here? Because the sense of our pavilion, and please, if you have a chance, go see the website of Italy Expo. You will see that we chose a pavilion with a project by Mario Cucinella, which is a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful pavilion. I think you will agree with me, because it has both identity, what is expected from us by the Japanese public, and at the same time modernity, high-tech, sustainability. That is a very important point in many of the things that we are seeing today. And our pavilion, in an expo whose theme will be designing future societies for our lives, our pavilion will be inspired by the words, art regenerates life. And bear in mind, we don't mean by this art in its most small, in the smaller sense of art, but in its wider sense. As Italians believe in art, which is also the work of the many jewelers and creators that we see here today, as engineering, as creativity, as invention. This is art. And art regenerates life. So our pavilion will be dedicated also to what we rightly say in Italian, artigianato, which is what we are seeing at its highest level. And we are planning also, we talked about this with Mr. Carniello not long ago, to have a special exhibition that is dedicated to this, to working with your hands, to inventing with your hands. And in fact, as we say sometimes in Italian, pensare con le mani, to think with your hands. So our pavilion will be inspired by this. We hope to see you there, but especially we hope to have contacts with all of you as we go towards this pavilion, so that as we make it, we have to make it an experience that is really after the pandemic, that somehow made Dubai start 1 year later, if you remember. This is really a comeback of international exhibitions, and so please, I hope to see you there, and we also hope to see more and more Japan in Vicenza. So thank you all, and I look forward to listening to these wonderful stories about pearls.
Thank you very much. And now, Silvio Ciniglio, he has an Italian exhibition group at for relation and strategic project with Japan. His talk is about Japanese pearls and the trade origin with Italy.
Thank you, Loredana. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, but my speech will be in Italian. I hope you understand me. Buongiorno a tutti. Benvenuti a Vicenza.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Vicenza Oro. I would like to thank Italian Exhibition Group for giving us this opportunity. The opportunity to conjugate the Japanese world with the Italian one. This project started more than 1 year ago, and with a lot of passion we have been developing this. This is why I would like to thank Marco Carnello for the support provided, for believing in this project, but also Michela Mendoni, Fabrizio Lombardi, and all those who have supported us in this adventure. So welcome to our Japanese friends. I would like to greet the General Council of Japan in Italy, Ms. Kobayashi-san, who represents the Japanese institution here in Vicenza. I would like to thank Mikimoto. I would like to thank the Japanese Association of Pearl Exporters. So welcome back to our Japanese friends, because today we are celebrating this significant connection between Italy and Japan that dates back to the end of the 19th century. So we're just freshening up what was already a strong connection in a very complicated period, when traveling was difficult and complicated. So we have to realize that the world at that time was totally different. It was not a global world, and also news coming from Japan and from faraway countries were scanty, rare, and without any certainty of trustworthiness. So towards the end of the 19th century, Italians went to Japan not so much to trade jewelry, but for a completely different trade, silkworms. In Europe, there was a crisis in this industry, and the Italian pioneers went to Japan because they had heard that there were new opportunities for trade there. In 1873, well, that's the whole timeline. 1850, first Italian commercial settlements in Japan. 1873, the Italian colony had 65 units. And in 1881, there were 396 Italian residents in Japan. This has been carefully researched, also thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ambassador Vattani knows about this better than I do. So the reign of Italy was very attentive towards this kind of evolutions. In 1912, there were more than 15 companies from Torre del Greco that operated in the coral sector. These are official data provided by Councillor Ivabene, who was in Japan at that time. As you all know very well, Torre del Greco has become, in time, the world capital coral. And already back in the 16th century, there was this tradition. So the traders from Torre del Greco and traders from Genoa, Trapani, Brindisi, and other Italian cities, they had actually discovered the world of pearls. Just a few words also about Mikimoto pearls in a while. So we have names, the names of the first very young individuals who went to Japan. From this viewpoint, the world was very different. We're talking about people who were 18 to 22. And I would like to greet family Liverino if they're not present here, but I would like to greet President Gaetano Cavalieri. I apologize for not mentioning you at the start, but of course we all appreciate what you do. So just to quote a few names, because Basilio Oliveri's book has actually been the milestone for the investigation in these topics. He was one of the first ones to focus on the history of the Neapolitan Italian traders who went to Japan. Mazzas, Cognalmiglio, these are some of the family names, together with Borelli, Delia, Gentile, Liguori, Liverino, Norato, Bartolomeo Palombo, Vitelli, and Michele Vitiello. The world did not have social networks at that time. There was no internet, no Twitter, no Instagram. But there were postcards. Most likely in a few years, new generations won't even know what a postcard is. But that, at that time, was the way to tell about life in Japan, to the advantage of your family or friends in Italy. So postcards are like today's Instagram or Facebook page. They were public. So traders, Italian traders in Kobe and Osaka, wrote everything on their postcards, both their requests to their families. Please send me this kind of food because I like it and I cannot find it here. Please send me a woolen jumper because it is cold in the winter. And they also communicated commercial information. And they disseminated also secret information regarding the development of trade. So they did not exactly write the true message for the receiver, but they actually crypted the message. So they wrote, business went very well. That meant they had not bought or sold anything. Or they wrote, I bought terrible goods, and that was the best business in their life. This was done to prevent anybody to go and contact that given supplier and make a good business too, or steal the business. Torre del Greco was the place where all these postcards arrived, and there was one single postman. So the postman knew about everybody's life. He could read every possible kind of news, and that is the first insider trader case, I believe. To prove the strong relationship between Japan and Italy, we have to go back to 1921, when the future Japanese emperor, Hirohito, made a 6-month journey to Europe. And amongst the many important European cities he visited, Paris, Naples, Venice, Turin, Emperor Hirohito wanted to visit Torre del Greco. Torre del Greco is a village at the foothills of Vesuvius, and it was already at that time the world capital of coral.
You know, at the time, the world was smaller than the globalized world of today. And the Hirohito would soon become emperor. And he went to Torre del Greco to pay tribute to the governor. Well, there is no picture here of the emperor because it was not possible to make a picture of the emperor. But you see the brother, Prince Takamatsu, and then the governor of Torre del Greco, Gaetano Longobardi, and the director of the School of Art, Maria Principessa di Piemonte, one of the most important schools of art in Italy for the camels and cameos. And this was to also to testify the importance of this institute. And then there were 2 members of the delegation, of the Japanese delegation. Now, in 1944, Gennaro Liguori was appointed General Consul of Italy in Kobe. And the Consul of Kobe was eliminated, and just the Osaka General Consul office remained, but nevertheless, the General Consul was in Kobe, and the first on the left is Gennaro Liguori from Torre del Greco, and he had been appointed as General Consul. Now, let's speak about the main topic of today, that is pearls. So it was almost a discovery made by Europe and made by the Western world. So it was the end of 1888, thanks to an intuition of Mikimoto, who would then become the most important entrepreneur in the area of pearls, and he had introduced an external body into the oyster, and he realized that this insertion immersed in the sea of the Bay of Ise for a certain period of time, that is 3 years, but also more years, to have the cultivated pearls. Well, he had discovered that it was produced by the oyster in order to expel the external body. And one of the most beautiful germs is produced in this way. Well, the journey made from Europe to Japan was a very particular one, because it lasted 40 days if you used the train, and you had to cross Austria, Poland, Russia, Siberia, and then from Vladivostok, which is a Russian harbor, you could reach Kobe, or it would last 60 days if you went by ship. And from Naples or Brindisi, which were the two harbors, through Porto Said, you would reach the Suez Canal, Colombo, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. Well, if we think about that, these are still today very important cities for our jewels and for jewels exhibitions, demonstrating that they have a very important strategic position. And they kept that position over time. So that is a postcard of the world in 1900. And today, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shanghai are very important centers for the trade of jewels in general.
La attività dell'azienda di Mikimoto, sul quale appunto io non...
Well, I will not dwell longer because there will be other talks on that. Well, this is another demonstration of very solid relations existing between Mikimoto and Italian companies. The then president of the Japan Pearl Promoting Society, Yukimoto, in 1957 invited Joseph Delia to the awards ceremony in Tokyo on the 1st of October of that year, because he wanted to pay tribute to those who had made Japan great in terms of the trade of pearls with the rest of the world. Well, I read several documents, and I found out that there were only 4 Western people who had been rewarded by the Japan Pearl Promoting Society, including a citizen from Torre del Greco who had then moved to New York, where he had continued his profession. Now, I will close with a nice and fundamental story which connects Mikimoto with our producers and traders of pearls. Well, this is an episode which had regarded the son of Joseph Delia, that is Bart Delia. Well, he had graduated in medicine in the US. He was 26 years old. He had decided to work in his father's company, and he had gone to Japan to learn how to select pearls. And then in 1948, he was ready to go back to the US. This other day he would fly to New York, but he was woken up at 2 o'clock by a telephone call while he was in his hotel room. Who is speaking? Bart said. On the other side, a voice said, the old man wants to see you. I cannot speak about that on the phone, but it is an opportunity that I would never give up. Tomorrow you will be on the island. Well, the old man was Kokichi Mikimoto, the historic inventor of pearls. He was 82, and the island was Toba, which is famous for pearl cultivation, and where Mikimoto cultivated the most prestigious pearls in the world. Well, the flight was cancelled, and Bart imagined that there was something important in that telephone call. And so the other day he went to Mikimoto's house. He was welcomed by Mikimoto, and the floor would make some noise while they sat down and drank a coffee together. And so Mikimoto told him, well, think that we are at the end of the Second World War. You know how it ended up. In Japan, we had the CILC, that is a committee which was set up, and the committee worked so that all that was taken from the sea would be sent to the government, who would sell the products in order then to get profits from that. And Mikimoto told Bart Delia, who had given back the products to the government, well, he said, I kept the most beautiful pearls for myself, for my sort of private collection, and you're sitting on that. And so Bart understood that below the floor there was that hidden treasure, this hidden selection of Japanese pearls directly and personally selected by Mikimoto, and he asked him to buy them. Well, and he said, okay, I would like to sell them to you. And there was a very close friendship between the two families. And Delia made the most important business in his life, probably. And how these pearls then got to the US, well, we do not know that, but we can imagine it.
So this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. The world of pearls is an unbelievable world in which cultivated Japanese pearls are even more fascinating than diamonds, because people cultivating them see them from their conception. So the pearl is actually followed throughout its birth, all the way until the pearl is sold in the luxury boutiques all over the world. And pearls shine more than diamonds and preserve the intact spirit of Mikimoto, who actually taught oysters how to produce pearls. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful story. Now I would like to leave the floor to Dr. Akamatsu, advisor for Mikimoto, who started working with Mikimoto in 1967. So we can well say that he is a living legend of cultivated pearls. And we also have another living legend here with us in this room. Dr. Ken Scarratt, who is here with us today, President and Vice President of the CIBJO Pro Commission, which is so useful for us gemmologists and for the whole industry. Thank you very much, Ken. Thank you very much, Akamatsu. So, what is the topic of the presentation? Japanese Akoya cultured pearls, the beginning of the industry, characteristics of the pearl and future prospects. Japanese pearls for us gemmologists have the best shine compared to any other pearl.
Buongiorno, mi chiamo Akamatsu. It's my great honor to be invited here to talk about Japanese cultural pearls. Now, I'm 81 years old. Since I started my career at the age of 24, I have engaged in pearl industry 57 years. And you know, the history of Japanese, history of cultured pearl after World War II is 78 years. That means I experienced 3/4 of industry. Now I feel like living witness of cultured pearl industry. Today I'd like to speak about 3 topics. First is the beginning of cultured pearl. The second, number 2 is the characteristics of Akoya cultured pearl, and number 3 is the future prospect of the industry. Okay, I'll start first. There are 4 topics in the beginning of the industry. First is cultured pearl industry started with Mikimoto's hemispherical cultured pearls in 1893. Please remember, this year is 2023, just 130 years ago. Then innovation of a spherical pearl culturing in 1907. And Paris Court decision in 1924. Please remember, next year is 2024. So just 100 years ago, the Paris Court decided cultured pearl is not imitation. And next, global expansion of cultured pearl fashion. So I'd like to tell a little more about them. In 1893, Mikimoto succeeded to culture hemispherical pearl. Soon after his success, he finished his products as jewelry and started to sell them. That's the beginning of cultural pearl industry. Just 130 years ago. In 1907, 3 Japanese, Kokichi Mikimoto, Tokichi Nishikawa, and Tatsuhei Mise, succeeded to culture spherical pearls, whole round pearls, by their own method. And among them, Tokichi Nishikawa's method, piece method, to insert nucleus together with a piece of mantle, is the most efficient. So his technique survives now. And now all pearl culturing is done by his method. In Australia, in Indonesia, in the Philippines and Myanmar, silver dip pearl is cultured by his method. And in Tahiti, Fiji, and Mexico, black pearl is cultured by Nishikawa's method. And in China, the nucleated freshwater cultured pearl is also made by Nishikawa's method. And in case of Akoya, Japan, China, Vietnam, and UAE produce the cultural pearls by Nishikawa's method. In 1919, when cultural pearl appeared in the world market in London and France, in Paris for the first time, big argument arose whether cultural pearl is imitation or not. And this matter was fought at the Paris court. And in 1924, it is decided that cultural pearl is not imitation. The forming mechanism is the same as natural pearls. Thus, cultural pearl was recognized. This is the paper, this is a document of the Paris Court decision. Please remember, 100 years ago, 1924. Since then, the cultural pearl was accepted all over the world. Please look at the front cover of Life magazine in 1949. After World War II, many American soldiers stationed in Japan. And when they went home, they bought Japanese Akoya cultural pearls. Thus, pearl boom took place in the United States. Please look at this photo. You can easily imagine how American people enjoyed cultural pearls. Next, I move on to the characteristics of Japanese Akoya pearls. In addition to Akoya cultural pearls, I'd like to tell a little about pearl oyster. Please look at this world map. This world map shows the distribution of pearl oysters belonging to Pinctada family. Pink dots indicate the distribution of Pinctada family. And except Japan, the three areas are Persian Gulf, Mannar Bay between India and Sri Lanka, and offshore Venezuela. These three areas are famous for producing natural pearls in the past. The oyster belong to the same Pinctada family, Pinctada radiata in Persian Gulf, Pinctada fcata in Mannar Bay, and Pinctada imbricata offshore Venezuela. Japanese Akoya oyster also belongs to Pinctada family, Pinctada fcata. That means, therefore, the Akoya cultural pearl is quite similar to the natural pearls in terms of the size, shape, and color. I move on to the size. Size range of Akoya pearl is from 2 to 10 millimeter. Among them, 6 and 7 are the most popular size. The 6 and 7 is suitable for making pearl necklace. Not so small, not so big. very convenient size. And as for the silver lip and black lip pearls, the size is bigger, starting from 8 to over 12 millimeters. Next, shape. Akoya oyster produce many kinds of shapes: round, semi-round, semi-baroque, baroque, circle, twin, tadpole, drop, and so forth. Among them, round occupies about 70%. Naka thickness. Next is Naka thickness. Please look at the cross-section of the Akoya cultured prose. Thickly coated, middle coated, and very thin coated. Naka thickness of the pearl is the most important quality factor from the viewpoint of durability. You know, 3 factors is needed for the gemstones: rarity, durability, and beauty. So if cultured pearl lacks of the durability, it cannot deserve to be called gemstones. So Naka thickness is the most important factor. Please look at this diagram. Naka thickness has a close relationship with culturing period. In general, the longer the culturing period, the thicker the naka. If we put the nucleus with a size of 5 millimeter and culture 2 years, then we get a pearl with a size of 8.2. In case Naka thickness is 0.6 millimeter. On the other hand, when we put the nucleus with a size of 78 millimeter and 1 year culturing, then we also get a pearl with a size of 8.2. But in this case, Naka thickness is only 0.2 millimeter, lack of durability. So the culturing period is very, very important. Then I move on color. Akoya cultured pearl is very beautiful. There are 2 reasons behind it. First is oyster species. Akoya pearl oysters can produce a very, very nice, very beautiful cultured pearls. And second is the structure of the Naka thickness. You know, Japan has 4 seasons, but I'm afraid this year maybe 3 seasons, because the summer is very hot and very short spring. So maybe in future Japan has only 3 seasons. In India, hottest 3 seasons. I'm afraid in future Japan will become the same season. But anyway, these very mild spring, very hot summer, and very mild autumn, and then a very severe winter. This season is very suitable for the pearl oysters to produce a very nice naka. In case the each naka is very thin, but thousands of seed is accumulated. Thus, the pearl has a very nice color and luster by the interference color. So that is the characteristics of Akoya color. And the color range starting from the pink, white, cream, gold, cream and gold, and blue. Akoya oysters do not produce black color. But anyway, color variety is very wide, so you can choose any color your favorite color. Next, I move on to the future prospect of the industry. Very, very important and very serious. Now, all materials needed for pearl culturing, pearl farm, pearl oyster, nucleus, and labor force, even labor force, they are all limited. In the past, there are no limit, so we can expand pearl culturing. But today, all are limited. So, in order to continue stable pearl culturing, we have to pay much attention to SDGs and zero emission. SDGs include industry change from labor-intensive to technology-intensive. Next, production of small quantity of high-quality pearls. Number 3 is effective use of limited resources. And finally, training of young technicians. On the other hand, zero emission includes all waste generated from pearl culturing activities is disposed of onshore. And then effective utilization of the waste. I'd like to talk a little more about them. Please look at these photos. Left photo shows labor-intensive culturing. All the cultivators still continue pearl culturing by their experience. But in this case, when new incidents such as a very harmful red tide occurs, they cannot do anything because there's no experience to cope with it. So as a result, many pearl oysters will die. On the other hand, in case of technology-intensive culturing, please look at the instrument set on the raft. That instrument monitors the condition, and if the harmful red tide takes place, immediately that instrument sends the situation to the office on the land, so cultivators can evacuate all pearl oysters to the safer place. No damage. So now we are changing. We are changing from the culturing technique from the labor-intensive to technology-intensive. This is very important. Please look at the map of Japan. These points show the number of pearl culturing areas. When I started the pearl business 57 years ago, there were over 30 pearl farms in Japan, but now only 5, including a newly opened. Black dot shows a newly opened pearl farms, but anyway, only 5. But we also have a good news. Please compare these two pearl oysters. Left is the usually used pearl oysters. And the right oyster is new pearl oysters by the introduction of gene technology. Thanks to the introduction of biotechnology, now we can produce bigger sized, high quality pearl oysters by hatchery breeding. So you can easily understand which oyster can produce a bigger size, high quality pearls. Next, nucleus. Maybe you are afraid of a nucleus problem about North Korea and China, but in Japan, the other nucleus is the most for the power industry. Another nucleus is the most serious problem. You know, beetle nucleus is made of American freshwater mussels. I'll show you the process. Nucleus manufacturers buy American freshwater mussels. Then, through this process, finally they make a beetle nucleus. But now, American government strictly restricted of catching the freshwater mussels because of CITES. In order to keep the resources, the American government sets a very strict strict restriction. CITES Appendix 1. So it is absolutely prohibited to catch the freshwater mussels, but only freshwater mussels for making the nucleus is permitted to catch. Next problem is the labor force. Shortage of young staff succeeded pearl culturing is also serious problem. Please look at her. She's recently hired. She's very nice. She's very good. Every day she sits on the chair, pick up the one pearl oysters, and open the shell, insert the nucleus together with piece of mantle, and close the shell, and moves to another cage. Then she picks up another oysters, and repeat. 600 to 800 times a day, without saying anything. Just continue. Maybe she speaks to the oyster, please produce good quality pearls, but no answer. So how to change pearl culturing work attractive is our own urgent task. And if you have a good suggestion, please let me know. If it is good, I will treat you to dinner tonight. Next, I'd like to talk about zero emission. Instead of this, the final this is better. As a result of the pearl culturing activity, we get three materials: shell, pearl, and meat. A shell is used for the ornament, and shell contains calcium. So when it is powdered, we can use that powder for the supplement and cosmetics. As for the pearls, of course, this is a main culturing work. If the quality of pearl is good, of course, we usually use them for making jewelry, such as necklace, rings, earrings, pendant, brooch, and so forth. And if the quality is poor, then the pearls are powdered and mixed with the shell and used in the same way. For the sweets, for the soil conditioner, a supplement, and cosmetics. And as for meat, hinge muscle, a muscle to open and shut the shell. This muscle is very nice food. It tastes very good. Troppo bene, okay? Meat is troppo bene. And mantle contains much collagen. Collagen is very good material to keep skin moisture. So the mantle is used for cosmetics. And other part of meat are used for soil as compost for growing plants, flowers, vegetables, and tea. Thus, all waste, par is not waste. All waste is disposed of on land, never dumped into the sea. So in order to continue the stable production, the zero emission is absolutely needed. So as conclusion, I think there are five conclusions. First is it's time to return to the starting point of pearl culturing. As I told you, cultured pearl industry started 130 years ago. And 100 years ago, whole round spherical pearl was recognized as the true pearls. But since then, the characteristics of pearl has greatly changed. At the beginning, our foreigners wanted to culture top high-quality pearls competing with natural pearls. But now, the quality range is very wide. Some cultivators produce gem quality pearl, but some others produce huge amount of low quality pearls. Like beans, in China, tons of pearls are cultured. Thus, we lost the reality value of the cultured pearls. So it's time for us to go back to the starting point of the cultured pearl and think one more time what cultured pearl is. And second is the product, pearls, remains the same. But as I told you, the production method should be changed from labor intensive to technology intensive. And third is effective use of limited resources to produce small quantities of high quality pearls. I think this is the only way to survive for the future cultured pearl industry. And number 4 is ensure zero emission. with SDGs in mind. Now we try to dispose all waste resulted from pearl culturing on the land. So in future, we can utterly protect the sea environment. And finally, this is my personal conclusion. I think pearl should have one more value. It's dreams. When you buy cultured pearls, I hope you have the dreams or stories or another value. It's my dream. So we have to continue to our pearl industry, but it's maybe it is becoming harder and harder. But anyway, we try to solve these problems and continue. That's the end of my speech. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akamatsu. I think in Italy, in the past, there was the tradition to give a strand pearl gift to 18th birthday to young ladies. I hope we can back this tradition. Now, our next speaker is Yumiko Ijichi. She is the executive director of Japanese Pearl Exporter Association. And her talk is about another important issue, the sustainability of pearls in Japan. Please.
ありがとうございます。Ciao, mi chiamo Ijichi. Grazie. Thank you for having us today. The name Ijichi sounds like the Italian Medici, but has nothing to do with it. Ijichi is an old warrior samurai family name. Of course, I'm not a samurai. I am executive director of Japan Pearl Exporters Association. I will introduce sustainability of Japanese pearls, particular focus on the Satoumi economy and people involved in the pearl industry. One, the 3 pillars of pearl sustainability. 2, the new initiative, especially upcycling. Satoumi refers to coral waters with high level of biological productivity and biodiversity as a result of human intervention. In fact, I started this job only 2 years ago. I am still too inexperienced to talk about pearls, but after listening to many people from aquaculture to processing and distribution talk about pearls, I have found one answer in my own way. Why are Japanese pearls so beautiful? Today, through this presentation, I would like to introduce this answer as well. Please look this screen at the life cycle of pearls. Within that life cycle, there are 2 aspects. One is a negative impact, and the other is a positive impact. Carbon dioxide is emitted in various forms, from production to disposal. For example, At aquaculture sites, electricity is used for lighting and the other purpose, and fossil fuels and used for boats. Aquaculture materials such as fishing nets, cages, and floats are made of plastic. Processing, distribution, and sales sites also use water and electricity to run mechanically and use paper, plastic, and the other materials for packaging, which has a negative impact over the environment and the society. On the other hand, there are positive impacts. For example, pearl cultivation forms a satoumi and is sustainable industry. Since the intervention of cultured pearls, pearl cultivation has been practiced in the area where people live. The sea and mountains have been properly managed and localized culture has developed. This slide shows the 3 pillars of pearl sustainability: planet, people, and pearls. Let's talk about planet. Pearls are found in the sea. Then sea minerals comes from the mountains. Nature is kept rich through human intervention. This is satoumi economy. People live, economy is created, pearls are farmed, and culture is made. Before pearl farming began, nature were over-harvested. Pearl farming is now a planned production, and pearl farming is the safest industry in the fisheries sector in Japan. Now let's move on to talk about people. They have meaningful work, which created. Sorry. Now let's move on to talk about people. They have meaningful work, which created value. This becomes the pride of pearl farmers and pearl professors. And the pearl industry cannot be mechanized. No two pearls are the same. Each one is different and unique. The craftsman industry instantly assesses the individuality, then selects or drills the pearls. At the drilling site, a skilled craftsman takes a pearl with her right hand, fills the pearl with her hand, and look at this with her naked eyes to determine where to drill a hole to enhance the pearl's splendors. Then, in a split second, she drills a beautiful hole with precision. This is how the value of the people of jewelry is enhanced. The sensation of the human eye and hand are more reliable than those of a machine. That is why it cannot be mechanized. When making the professional video, I realized the farmers and craftsmen referred to pearls as this child. This was very interesting for me. They all nurtured and treated the pearls with great love and care, as if they were their children. In this way, Japanese pearls are nurtured with love and care by many parents, and then delivered as beautiful pearls to people all over the world. Okay. Finally, let's move on to pearl. There is enrichment, both material and spiritual, and culture. For example, ceremonies, anniversaries, people express their sincere feelings of joy or sadness by wearing pearls to the ceremony and enhanced with others. And they connect people and time. One example is heirloom pearls, which are memories handed down, lived long, and treasured. This brings me to the second part, upcycling. Currently, there are a large number of fishing nets left on the beaches of farming sites that cannot be disposed of and are damaging the landscape. They are also causing a burden on the environment. This spring, we have organized a beach litter cleanup tour where we picked up, sorted, and allocated litter and discussed about upcycling. We are trying to upcycle discarded nets and make them into straps, bags, and shoes, as well as buckets and nets for cultivation. Now we are working with a manufacturing company on upcycling waste fishing nets. This initiative has only just begun. However, if this business scheme takes off, the waste from pearl farming will certainly be reduced. The Japanese Pearl Fair, to be held in this November in Japan, will use name straps made from discarded fishing nets from Hokkaido. In addition to this, we also do composting and tree planting activities. Finally, supplementary information on the PARS Charter. This was established in 1993 by Japan Pearl Promotion Society. Pearls created by nature are living jewels which has been enjoyed for centuries for their intrinsic beauty. We have endeavored to enhance the natural beauty of cultured pearls through our commitment to improve techniques while not affecting nature's work. Pearls are now produced on a worldwide scale. This is a development which enhances their universal acceptance. It is our wish that pearls may enrich our daily lives and play an important part as a messenger of peace in the long run. A pearl is a prayer for the quintessence of beauty that is created by nature and man. As pearl cultivating pioneers and industrialists, it is our intention to promote and safeguard the mystical quality of pearls, making effective use of our experience and ability. At the beginning, I told everyone that I had my own answer to why Japanese Akoya pearls so beautiful. As you may have understood from our presentation, Japan has 4 seasons, a rich nature environment, and people's passion for everything from pearl production to processing and sales. I hope that this presentation will help you deepen your understanding of Japanese pearls. Thank you for this opportunity to share with us the beauty of Japanese Akoya pearls. Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you, Yumiko, for your speech and also for your conclusion. Because in my opinion, today we can start not only to speak about the 4 C's of diamond, but the 3 P for all gem material: planet, people, and passion, because we need passionate people in our trade, in our industry. Thank you very much. Ringrazio appunto tutti per...
Thank you very much for all of you, for paying attention to our GEM talk. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them to our speakers who have illustrated the characteristics of Japanese cultivated pearls as well as the ongoing evolution in the cultivation of pearls, paying attention to the sustainability of this industry. Any questions? If there are no questions, we can now break for a couple of minutes. Oh, there is a question. Piero De Stefano, pearl expert. You've even written a book about pearls.
About something, in a certain moment we talked about that, and that is the genetic modification. How much the genetic modification impact now on the pearl industry?
You can talk.
It's okay.
No, it's okay. You can speak.
With the microphone. With the microphone.
Are you talking about gene technique? In the past, we solved the mechanism by tissue, by the mechanism of the tissue. But now we are moving from tissue to cell. In order to solve the how pearl is performed in the pearl sac, then the new gene technology is needed. At present, we reached some conclusion. What cell has the ability to control the secretion of calcium carbonate, and which cells has the ability to secrete nacre, and what kind of cell has the ability to produce pigment. So, in order to solve these mechanisms, then we can improve the oyster quality. Take the yellow pigment, for instance. Usually yellow colored pearl is not favored. But in the past, many scientists try to remove yellow color by adding some chemicals such as hydrogen peroxide. But it's only damage. It's only gives a damage to the pearls. But now we have the mechanism how the yellow pigment is produced in the pearl oysters. Then we can eliminate such oysters. We can produce the high quality pearls without the yellow pigment. Thus, the gene technology is introducing now. Is that okay?
Purtroppo non abbiamo tempo per altre domande perché fra poco inizia.
Unfortunately, we have no time for more questions because soon there will be another GEM talk starting. So let's have this 5-minute break so that we can change the panelists. And I hope you will stay also for the GEM talk about natural and synthetic diamonds. Thank you.